If you have. If it's a big deal, don't worry about it.
On your way, Mark.
Remember, yours is on and off.
Okay, no.
We do have Mr. Saunders on.
Okay, great. Thanks, Mark.
Go ahead and get started here. Welcome to the October 21st, 2021 Kent County Board of Adjustment meeting. Go call to order.
Yes,
Or
sir.
roll call, please.
Yes, sir. Miss Hudson?
Present.
Mr. Crossan?
Here.
Mr. Jenkins?
Here.
Mr. Saunders?
Here.
Thank you. Mr. Cusick?
Here.
Thank you. That shows 5 present.
Thank you. Introduction of staff.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Jamie Fensky. I'm a planner here with Kent County. I also have with me Scott Blair, who's also a planner. We have our IT folks, Mark and Tom, and then we have our solicitor, Fred Townsend.
Thank you. At this moment, I'd like to everyone please stand and do the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag. Staff, any additions and or alterations to the agenda tonight?
No, sir.
Public hearing introduction, please.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Jamie Fensky, and I'll preside as the hearing officer for tonight's public hearing. This hearing is being conducted for the purpose of providing the citizens of the county an opportunity to present testimony on the applications before the Kent County Board of Adjustment. Everyone will have an opportunity to speak. This will provide those who wish an opportunity to give their testimony. If there is a group of citizens in favor or opposed to any of the applications, they may wish to elect one spokesperson among them to present the testimony to the board. There is an official recording of these proceedings being made. Therefore, we ask that only one person speak at a time and that they speak clearly. Furthermore, there should be no cross-examination of witnesses permitted during the public hearing, but the board can ask the applicant questions after any opposition if necessary. As a courtesy to other participants in this hearing, a maximum of 5 minutes will be allotted to any person who wishes to provide testimony. The chairperson of the board has the discretion to allow additional time if deemed to be necessary. To make statements when your application is called and for the record, please give your name, address, and allow our attorney to swear you in prior to providing testimony. Copies of any written statements or exhibits used during the hearing should be presented for identification so that they may be included in the permanent record. The procedure on each variance application will be as follows. The legal notice will be read on each case prior to the receipt of testimony. There will be a brief explanation of the application by the staff. The board will then receive testimony from all of those in favor of the application, followed by testimony of those who may be opposed. Once those persons in favor and those in opposition have had an opportunity to speak, the hearing on that application will be declared closed. Following the close of the public hearing, the record will remain open for public submission until the business meeting commences. Decisions on all applications heard this evening will be made by the board during the business meeting following the public hearing. However, you are not required to remain after the public hearing once your request has been heard and closed. During the business meeting, the board will consider all information of record. A common vote of 4 members of the board shall be required to make a decision on each application. If you do not wish to wait for the business meeting later this evening, you may call Kent County Planning Department tomorrow between 8 a.m. and 5 p.m. at 744-2471, or check the Kent County Planning Department website to learn of the board's ruling. All applicants will receive written notification of the board's decision. This notice may not be mailed until the next scheduled meeting, but if approved, you are welcome to apply for any necessary permits prior to receiving this by mail. Please keep this decision in your records for both you and all future property owners. The public notice of this evening's hearing was published on October 4th, 2021 in the Delaware State News. In addition, all of the subject properties were posted with a sign prior to the hearing to further notify the public of nature of the applications. Thank you.
Thank you, Jamie. And now a statement by Mr. Fred Townsend.
Thank you, Mr. Acting Chairman. The Delaware Supreme Court has established the standards for the granting of area variances in a case known as the Board of Adjustment versus Quick Check Realty. The legal standard applied to applications for area variances considers whether a literal interpretation of zoning regulations result in exceptional practical difficulties of ownership. And in order to determine whether that test has been met, the board weighs the following 4 factors. First, the nature of the zone where the property lies. Second, the character and uses of the immediate vicinity. Third, whether removal of the restriction on the applicant's property would seriously affect neighboring properties. And fourth, whether failure to remove the restrictions would create unnecessary hardship or exceptional practical difficulty for the owner in relation to the owner's efforts to make normal improvements to the property. The test is satisfied only when the difficulties alleged by the owner are practical rather than theoretical and exceptional rather than routine. Note that economic hardship may constitute a legitimate exceptional practical difficulty. In general, the board is not permitted to consider factors other than the 4 I listed. Therefore, those speaking both in support of and in opposition to applications are urged to present only information bearing directly on the nature of the zoning district, the characteristics of the area, whether the requested variances would seriously affect neighboring properties, and lastly, whether the applicant is confronted with challenges rising to the level of exceptional practical difficulties. In particular, presenters are instructed to exclude from their presentations any discussion of personal disputes or acrimony between the applicant and neighboring property owners, as the board is not authorized to resolve those disputes. Those are my comments.
Thank you, Mr. Townsend. And now we'll begin the public hearing.
First, we have application A-21-37 for Joseph and Elizabeth Bergman. Is someone present for that case? Thank you. Okay. Sorry. So, Mr. and Mrs. Bergman are seeking a variance from the requirement that an accessory structure shall not be located in the front yard or front setback of any parcel unless the structure is located at least 100 feet from the front property line to enable the construction of a detached garage. The property is located on the northwest corner of Pearson's Corner Road and Eden Terrace, west of Dover, Levy Court 6th District. It's zoned AR. Here you will see the applicant is proposing the 30 by 50 building to be 50 feet from the corner of Pearson's Corner Road. This is staff's recommendation to be 75 feet south of Pearson's Corner and 100 feet west of Pearson's Corner. Here's the front of the home. This is the approximate location of the building right there around the bend. This is showing Eden Terrace. And again, the bend there of Pearson's Corner. And a look at where the building is proposed to go. And again, a location of where the building is going. And the aerial. Sir, if you would like to come forward and state your name and address and allow our attorney to swear you in.
My name is Joseph Bergman. I reside at 683 Pearson's Corner Road in Hartley, Delaware.
Sir, do you affirm the testimony you give in this proceeding will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
All right, please proceed.
The main reason I need the building to be approximately 50 feet from the road is because it allows the room behind the building, which is where the doors will be, in order to be able to get my camper inside. If the camper doesn't go inside, the camper stays in the yard, which is unsightly and an eyesore for myself and everyone else around. Another reason I need this building to be where it's at is because I need to be able to park my vehicles in there. I think that's a standard thing for any type of building. We also need room to house my mother-in-law's belongings. We've recently taken in her because her husband has passed away recently. It's all ways on the location of the building. You can see where the driveway will be in the rear, and the three main doors will be on the same side. The further it is to the road, the more actual room it gives me. That would be north of those three circles, which is the septic. So the more it is closer to the road, the more yard my son will have to play outside. The home does have a two-car garage, which appears to be a two-car garage, but it actually has a stairway built into it to go upstairs to my mother-in-law's suite. So now it's only a one-car garage, which works great for the lawnmower, and that's about it. So once we have a place for the mower, pretty standard, we'll have a place for the wife's vehicle to take the kid in and out of the vehicle in a safe manner. There's been some things said from other contestants, I guess you'd say, in the neighborhood about property value being affected, and I'm pretty sure everyone knows that adding value to a property by putting a properly designed and adequate building on a property won't lower the value. That's not how real estate works at all. I'm pretty sure everyone knows that. And there's also been some things said about line of sight from the building's location at the 50-foot mark. I have some images that I took from the end of Eden Terrace, which is the bottom right of the image. I placed my wife's vehicle at the front left corner of the building. And you can see,
To see these,
yes, I would. That would be great.
can we have them as evidence, or do you need this back?
No, you can have them as evidence. It's not a problem. Looking for a. Here's the same photo. The vehicle that belongs to my wife is the red 4Runner in the rear.
And you're saying where your wife's car is, where the building would be, where
Yes.
you would like it? Okay.
That would be the furthest point forward on the property that the building would obstruct any view. And as you can see, it won't obstruct any more than the shrubs behind it, which are actually the neighbors, not even mine. The two letters that were presented against the variation of the policy is property value. I think that's what she's trying to weigh on a lot. If that was her true concern, she wouldn't have several items all over her own property and her mother's properties.
Sir,
Yes.
if you could avoid commenting on the remarks made by your opposition, and just make the case you need to make for why you have exceptional practical difficulty and need relief from the code.
Okay, very good, thank you. It's very unpractical for the building to be set back all the way to the back property line. It only gives them about, I believe, 18 feet from the back of the building to the rear property line, which is the dashed image. Without pushing it forward to the 50 feet, it just completely pinches me off and doesn't allow me to move around. With the truck and backing the camper into the garage, if anyone has a camper, you can definitely relate to the struggle of that. I believe that would be the practicalness of it. And of course, keeping my belongings out of the weather and the winter and the ice and everything else.
I have a question.
Yes.
So you couldn't accomplish what you want to get done if you had the building tilted so that you wouldn't even have to make a turn? You could just take your RV straight in, straight out?
RV would be a bad word for it. I guess you would say camper because it's a trailer. So you wouldn't be able to pull the truck through the shop with the camper hooked to the rear because it's not a pass-through shop. I would actually have to back into the shop. The whole thing is I don't want doors on the road side because it's a high-traffic road, and just for general security, not showing everyone what I have, you know. Good question. Thank you.
Okay.
I have a question for you.
Yes, sir.
I guess you know that the staff has recommended a modified approval that you place this structure as it's stated or as it's shown 75 feet from the property line instead of 50. So I assume that you've tried that.
Yes, I received the letters this week with that proposal. That was a great idea. It does still keep me 100 feet from the west of the road, which still pinches me off. This image right here, I'm not sure if it's done to scale, but it makes it look a lot more room than it really is per my measuring tape. Again, it's only 38 feet from the left top corner of the proposed building to the rear of the property. So you put a 26-foot camper with a tongue and a spare tire on the back, that's more than 30 feet hooked to a truck. That's going to be pretty difficult to smoothly put that truck and trailer in its right spot.
I came out today and viewed the property.
Cool.
And I think some of the concern from the staff and also from your neighbors is the fact that it could possibly block some of the view, and that is a nasty curve. And I must admit that in the probably 3 minutes I was there, probably 5 or 6 cars and pickups went past me. It is a pretty sharp turn, and there again, the staff has looked at this, and they think that if you go with the 50 feet, that it is going to be a hindrance and possible blocking some of the view from oncoming vehicles.
Okay.
The other thing I might comment on in your statement or in your reasons for the modification is we're not able to store lawn mowers and other lawn care items. Well, they make smaller sheds for those types of things. I didn't sit there and stare at your property all the way around. I don't know if you have a shed there, storage shed like a lot of people do or not, but you certainly could put some of the smaller items in another type of a shed or another type of a building.
That's a good idea. If you go back to the other image, there's not really a good place to put a shed. If the driveway is where it's going to be, it kind of closes it off, and we'd have to cut down another tree, the magnolia tree, right where it says 25 feet. There's a magnolia tree right there. It's it's a beautiful tree. If you don't put the shed there, there's not a good spot to put it. The only other place would be closer to the road at the top left of the image.
The other thing is that you mentioned you're a camper, I believe it is. Even on that road, homes coming and going from, I think it was Route 8 or wherever over, there are people that have campers parked by their house or by their other garage or wherever. I mean, there are lots of places you can store campers other than in a garage on your property. So
But there's no place better. No place better to have your own property on your own
Right.
property, out of the weather.
Yep, don't disagree with that. So, but there are some other options as well.
Right. But I purchased this property, and I'd like to have everything at home with me.
Right, and the staff is not asking for any modification in the size of the building or anything else. They're just saying that it would be safer if it was 75 foot from any point in that curve than
Very well.
50.
I had one. Can you please explain to me right here?
Yes, sir.
Please explain to me again, like what Morgan said. I'm not quite following you. If you did rotate that building and pretty much back straight up and be able to back straight into I'm not quite following you.
You're saying turn the building
So where's your
towards the
drive?
house?
So where's the driveway at now with those two?
The driveway is
The main driveway. So the main driveway for off Pearson's Corner Road.
is Eden Terrace. That's actually Eden Terrace at the bottom.
Oh, okay,
And that's my
gotcha,
very
gotcha.
short, that driveway is about 35 foot long. It is good for a vehicle. That's about it. So what would have to happen is they have cedar trees on both sides of the road. I'm sure within those images you can catch that. And they're closing in on Eden Terrace, the left side there.
Yep.
So to back a 26-foot camper down that and then curve down the side of my property and all the way around back and to stab into the building at 2 a.m. after camping with the family, that's not very practical. That's
I feel like it'll be easier if you're going straight into it. If you rotate the garage doors, can you go back to that other image of his site plan?
I'm all for ideas.
So if you rotate that building and where the garage doors are, rotate it 45 degrees, and it's perpendicular to the new driveway. Yep. Yes.
That's great. That may fix that, but it does not allow me to avoid backing down Eden Terrace. I've actually already torn off the driver's side of my mirror on my pickup, and I've torn off the passenger mirror of my pickup, trying to back a trailer down this road.
Is that road a state road?
It is a HOA maintained road by us. It is one lane, and that's it.
It's a private road.
Yes, private road.
Have you reached out to your HOA about removing the trees?
Yes,
What was the response?
that's it. No.
They won't remove the trees?
There's strong family ties to the property around me, and that's just, I'm not part of them, so I'm doing the best I can to make this work.
So your objection to doing that is what?
The issue with getting the camper in the backyard is not the way the building is positioned. It's actually getting it down Eden Terrace.
Right, so that, I mean,
In
so,
reverse.
so you have that issue regardless of where this building,
I will have issues with the driveway, absolutely, unless I nose in and just drive in straight and then do a 3-point turn and then back it in. I'm going to need that angle. I would love to invite you out, because if that building is in that position that it is, the red one, you're going to drive through a magnolia tree to try to get into the right side bay. I've had multiple builders at my house. I've had multiple friends that have buildings at my house. Everyone is stumped, and this is exactly what anyone's come up with, is the black rectangle. That is the best case scenario, unless you have someone with some type of engineering degree that can change my layout of my property.
all right, thank you. Any other questions?
Yes, just for the record, I want to make sure I'm clear.
Yes, sir.
I think you were asked previously about the modified approval.
Yes.
You're aware of it, what that is?
Yes,
And you would be okay with that?
it would work. The only issue with it is this property is not for me right now. This is the property that my family will grow at for many years to come. I think that's a well-known thing. In 10 years, if I need to put a privacy fence to the rear of me, what's the setback on a privacy fence? Is it 5 feet on the rear, or is it 10 feet on the rear? So it's just
I
going to
believe it could be right on the property line.
Yes, so if it barely fits now, I don't want to risk tearing down a fence. I've already torn up enough. And in all honesty, that's why we're here. If I can get even 65 feet, which would be 85 feet from the west and 75 feet from the north, that would give everyone enough breathing room back there to comfortably do their, for me to get in and out. I don't want to have to sell the property to try to make something else work. I've talked to one of the board members several times over and over on each property I was trying to buy, and this is the best one we could come up with, and we plan on having this forever.
How long is your camper?
How long is my what?
Your camper? Or your RV?
26 foot.
Thank you.
Yep. If we could fall at 85 feet and 75 feet, I can make that work, and I'd be very happy. The builder is on standby.
Good, yeah, I mean, my opinion is 50 feet. I think that it is a site issue, but I think that extra 25 feet definitely would help, for sure. Anyone else? Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Is there anyone else that would like to speak in favor of this application?
If there's anyone joining us on WebEx who would like to speak in favor of this application, please press *3 to raise your hand. I see no one wishing to speak at this time.
Thank you. Is there anyone that would like to speak in opposition of this application? If you are online, please press *3.
I see no hands raised at this time.
Thank you. Seeing no one, we are going to close the public hearing for application A-21-37. Next, we have application A-21-38, Jonathan and Lucy Miller. Is there someone present for this application? Thank you. You can just stay seated while we present the case. Thank you. So we have Mr. and Mrs. Miller. They're seeking a 25% expansion of a legal non-conforming use to enable the expansion of a sawmill. The property is located on the east side of Yoder Drive, east of Brittany Lane, southeast of Hartley. It's in Levy Court District 6, Zoning District AR. You will see here that the applicant is proposing to put the new building in about the same location as the existing building. He's just asking for the new building to be larger than the existing. Here's the existing site. Looking down the road, and the other location. On this site, the existing wood and the existing building. More of the existing site and the aerial. Sir, if you would like to come forward, state your name and address and allow our attorney to swear you in.
I'm Jonathan Miller, and I live at 155 T&B Lane in Camden, Wyoming, but the business is at 292 Yoder Drive, like they said.
Mr. Miller, I'm going to swear you in, but I'm going to first ask you to pull that microphone a little closer to your face. We've got these masks on, which make it a little bit more difficult for us to hear. Sir, do you affirm the testimony you give in this proceeding will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Pardon me?
Yes.
You may proceed with your testimony.
I need like you can see, I need a new building, and I would like to make it a little bit bigger while I'm doing it, and I'm also getting new equipment, and it's going to be bigger than what I got to fit in and have a little bit more room in the back to work, and so it's not quite as tight to work in the back.
Any questions?
I just have one. Is the new building, the proposed building, going to be open like the old, or partially closed, or partially closed and part
It's
open?
going to be partially open like the old building. It'll have openings and whatever. If you can see on the old building, it does have sliding doors, and we might put some there for the winter, but for the most part, it's going to be partially open like that.
And by increasing the size, that's going to let you put some newer equipment in and get your workers out of the weather.
Yeah.
Also.
Right now, it's almost not wide enough. If we work in the rain, the edges, the lumber stacks are actually right on the edge, and it's not really a good place to work in the rain. And if we get a little bit wider, we might be able to do that a little bit better.
Gotcha.
Any other questions?
Could we ask staff to explain for the record what the significance of the 25% increase is? I mean, there's a floor or a ceiling regarding changes to legal non-conforming buildings. Is that right?
Yes, sir. So this building or this business has been there since before 1974, I believe we had record of. So it is legal non-conforming, and they are allowed to expand a legal non-conforming use by 25%. He is expanding it. I think it's very, very close to the 25%, 24 point something. So that will be the max that he will be able to ask for on this use without going through a new approval using the site plan conditional use.
Good, Mr. Townsend. Thank you. Any other questions? Good, thank you.
Is there anyone else that would like to speak on this application?
If there's anyone online that would like to speak on this application, please press *3. or the raise hand icon if you're joining us by mobile device.
Is there anyone that would like to speak in opposition of this application?
I see no hands raised online at this time.
Thank
Mr. Miller,
you.
you can be seated. Thank you.
This time, we will close the application for A-21-38 for Lucy and Jonathan Miller. Sorry, close the public hearing.
Okay, our next application is A2139, Jonathan Barber and Shanna Addix. Is there someone here to represent this application? Thank you. We'll call you up in a minute to be sworn in. So again, this is Jonathan Barber and Shanna Addix. They seek a variance from the provision prohibiting accessory structures to dominate an area of the principal structure to enable the construction of a pole building. The property is located on the west side of Bear Swamp Road, south of Raymond Neck Road, north of Leipzig. Levy Court District 1st, Zoning District AC. So Exhibit B shows you the proposed accessory structure, and it gives you some idea of the size. There are 2 proposed lean-tos as well. They will be added to the total square footage. The dwelling is 1,664 square feet. The proposed pole building with the lean-tos would be 3,184 square feet. Again, the current code says that you cannot build a building larger than any dwelling and attached garage, which doesn't apply in this case. This is the sign posted in their front yard. This is looking up the road, Bear Swamp in one direction, south, I believe, and this is to the north. This is an idea of where this building will go. It's in the staff report. I think board members have already read that there was previously a garage here that burned up, unfortunately, with their belongings. You can kind of see back there by the boat where that footprint would be. I believe that's the proposed new location of the larger structure. This is the aerial photo that does show that garage when it was still there. And it gives you some idea of the scale of the house. This is a higher up aerial photograph. Okay, that's it. If you would come up, please, and have our attorney swear you in and give testimony, please.
Please state your name and address.
My name is Shanna Addix, 197 Bear Swamp Road, Smyrna, Delaware.
Ms. Addix, do you affirm the testimony you'll give in this proceeding will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Please proceed.
Thank you. Good evening. Jonathan and I are here seeking approval to build an accessory building that is larger than the square footage of our primary dwelling. I will be referencing the staff responses in the staff recommendation packet. Number 2, staff response states that no parcels within at least 1.5 mile radius have been granted a variance to permit an accessory structure to be larger than the principal structure. We live in a farming community surrounded by land owned by Drapers, Newbergs, Snows, and Wicks. We are also neighbors to Bombay Wildlife Refuge. There are about 15 to 20 houses within a 1.5 mile radius, most of which owned by farmers. They wouldn't have to seek a variance to build an accessory building due to being agriculture in nature. Our next door neighbors also did not have to request a variance for their accessory building due to the fact that their house is approximately 3,700 square feet. Number 3, whether the removal of the restriction on the applicant's property would seriously affect the neighboring properties. Staff response said it may lead to an undesirable trend for an accessory structure to dominate in the area of the principal structure. In our area, as stated before, there are very few properties that are not farmer-owned. Almost all the properties already have an accessory building currently on their property. The availability of our land is very scarce. The farmland on all sides of our property is in farmland preservation, so even if the farmland is sold, they'd have to use it for farming purposes. We have lived on this property for almost 25 years and have seen one new build, which was the farmer's son. There are not many people that live out near us or even drive down our road for our building size to become a trend. Number 4, whether the failure to remove the restriction would create an unnecessary hardship. There are 3 statements in the staff response I would like to respond to. The first one, the ability to construct 2 separate accessory structures. Constructing two separate buildings would bring up a few concerns for us. First, the amount of extra money that it would cost to build these two separate buildings. We'd have to have separate electric, separate heat and air conditioning units. We'd also have to have more windows, more man doors, more garage doors. The cost would add up quickly. Secondly, we would be concerned about the aesthetics. We like things to be minimal, and two buildings would just not look as nice as just one. Finally, we would be concerned about how to lay out the two separate buildings on our property without encroaching on the rear or side setbacks, but still being able to enter the garage doors without losing some of our backyard to a driveway. Number two, the size difference between the principal structure and the proposed structure of being 1,520 square feet. The size difference between the actual building and our house is 880 square feet. Our previous garage was way too small for our needs. We had to pull items out of the garage to perform maintenance on our vehicles to work on a project. When all the items were inside, we would find ourselves doing like the side shimmy to get around. So we're trying to avoid that. We built our house in 2005, and we built what we could afford. Fast forward to today, it's not that the building that we're asking for is too big, it's just that we built our house too small. Our financial situation is a little different than it was 16 years ago, and now that our boys are grown, we have one that's moved out and one that's 19, it would better serve us to have a larger building than actually build an addition onto the house. The last statement was the family and friend gatherings, that we could build a separate pavilion or gazebo. While this could be an option, the look of the lean-tos with the wood posts, the rocking chairs, some potted flowers, well, it just looks nice. Also, the lean-tos would have at least one side to shelter from the wind, rain, and the setting sun. Please know, if we had the choice, we would rather be vying for space in our old garage with all of our old belongings and our old memories instead of being here. But in life, there are things that will knock you down, which we've experienced a few times in this past year. But we're going to stand up, we're going to brush ourselves off and attempt to move forward and plan for our future. With your approval, we will be able to build the building of our dreams, and it will have enough space for all of our new belongings and enough space to make new memories with our family and our friends. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Any questions?
Yes, I do have a question.
Yes, sir.
On the report here, it states that the difference between the proposed pole building and lean-tos or sheds and the principal structure is 1,520 square feet.
Correct. So the lean-tos, we're asking for two. One would be on the front, which is the 14 by 40, which adds the 480 square feet. And then the lean-to to the north would be a 12 by 12, which would add the 144 square feet.
Right.
So our house is listed as 1664. The building we're looking for would be a 40 by 64, which would be 2560.
But when you add the two
lean-tos in.
lean-tos, it ends up being 3184.
Correct.
With a difference of 1,520 square feet.
Yes, so that's when I was saying the actual building and not the lean-tos.
Well, they count as.
Yes, sir.
So is there, since it's the square footage of the new building that's being in question here, have you given any consideration as you really need the 12 by 40 feet lean-to on the one side?
So looking at the buildings, we've kind of done there's the FBI buildings on the website, and the awnings off the front would provide the protection from the man doors of being able to get in. Also, our area where you see, we love the outdoors. So being able to have the awning outside and being able to have sitting area out there, that's just kind of what we would like it for. Also, it would end up making the building look nicer and finished. I think having the lean-to off of it would be the east side, but it's what I'm looking for at the back of my house. So that's what I would be looking at.
And I just have to ask this question. Sure. You mentioned, I think I heard you correctly, you plan on heating and air conditioning this 3,100
Yes, sir.
square foot?
So we are garage people. Our house is just a smaller ranch. We spend a lot of time in our garage. It's the way that I was brought up with my dad, and Jonathan wakes up, he gets a shower, he goes out into the garage. Like, that's where we spend a majority of our time. So, yes, sir.
Thank you.
Would you have built onto your existing garage if it didn't burn down, or is this? Since it burned down, this is something.
It's like that opportunity. It's one of those things of, I mean, we lost everything. I don't know if you read in the report, but we had a lot of things. So we're just trying to find some space. We're looking, so according to the insurance policies, we have to be able to replace at least 70% of the items that were lost in the garage for us to get the replacement value. So we know that we have to put things back, and we just knew that we did not have nearly enough space. We were building shelves, and we actually built a little loft to be able to have the storage that we needed. We're trying to avoid that this time around.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Can you touch base on the neighboring properties for me again?
Yes. So can we go to maybe I don't know if an aerial view. The farm in front of us, I believe. So the farm to the front of the house, I believe that's owned by Draper. That might be too far for me. The farmland that's owned to the back of our house and to the south side is Wicks. No, I'm sorry, it's Snows. And then we have Wicks's farm, which is on Route 9. I don't have a pointer, I'm sorry. So where the yellow is, where our house is, if you look at the farm directly below, that is the Snow farm. And he owns the property where yes, yep. And then the field in front is the Drapers farm. And then the Wickses own the field that's kind of separated between Route 9 and then our back. I'm not explaining this very well. Yes, right there. That would be the Wicks. Am I saying this correctly? And then the Wickses also own across Route 9 where the green fields are. I'm not sure about that one, but then the green field right below it. A little bit to the lower.
And there's many large ag buildings in the area, correct?
Yes, sir. And we've spoken to the Snows on a regular basis, and he's spoken to the Newbergs, and as far as I know, that they didn't have any issue. They were fine, and it's harvest season, so no one could be here for that to be able to come in.
Thank you. And is this a one-story garage? It's not going to be 2 stories, correct?
No, it'll be depending on the trusses that we put in. It is 1 story.
Thank you. Any other questions? Good. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in the room who would like to give testimony in favor of this application? In favor? Yes, sir. Could you please come up, state your name and address, and allow our attorney to swear you in, please?
My name is Benjamin Burrows, and I live on Bear Swamp Road, 241, Smyrna, Delaware. I'm the neighbor to them.
Sir, over here. Do you affirm the testimony you'll give in this proceeding is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Please proceed.
I disagree. I agree with them. I don't mind them building the building. So, I have no complaints about them building the building. No complaints. And I live right next door.
Thank you. So you're the property just north of the map there?
Yes. And that's all I got to say. But
all right. Any questions for Mr. Burrows? Yeah. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Burrows. Is there anyone else in the room who would like to give testimony in favor of this application? In favor? No? Anyone online, Mark? Anyone online who would like to give testimony in favor of this application? Is it *3 to raise their hand?
Or you can press the hand raise icon if you're joining us by mobile device. I see no hands raised at this time.
Thank you. Okay, since there's no more testimony in favor, is there anyone in the room who would like to give testimony in opposition to this application? Opposition? No? Anyone online who would like to give testimony in opposition to this application?
Again, I see no hands raised on WebEx at this time.
Thank you. Since there's no more testimony in favor or in opposition to A2139, the hearing for A2139 is now closed. Thank you.
Next, we have application A-21-29 for Mr. Brian Brown. Is there someone present for this application? Thank you. So if you just want to remain seated for just a moment while I present the case. So Mr. Brown is seeking a variance from the 30% maximum impervious surface coverage and from the requirement that a residential accessory structure may be located no closer than 5 feet from the rear property line to legalize existing improvements and construction and to construct a residential accessory building. The property is located on the west side of North Wilson Avenue, southeast of Woodford Street, and east of the city of Dover. It's in the Levy Court District 3, and it's zoned RMH. Mr. Brown came forward last month asking for the same impervious variance, but he has changed his building request to be used for residential use only, not for home occupation. So that requirement is now for 5 feet from the property line, and he is asking for that building to be 2 feet from the property line. As you'll see, the permitted impervious coverage is 30%, which is 7,580 square feet. And the existing impervious coverage with the proposed building would be 11,029 square feet, which is equivalent to 43.65%. Here you will see that the proposed building is 2 feet to the rear property line. Here's the front of the home, one of the driveways for the home, the other driveway, looking back in the rear of the property. You will see there the deck and some of the outbuildings with the proposed building that's already partially constructed without a permit. Looking down the road, the other direction, and the aerial. Sir, if you would like to come forward and state your name and address for the record.
While Mr. Gary does that, is this being treated as a new application or as a continuation of a tabled application?
A little bit of both. So the impervious is what was tabled, but the request has changed from a accessory building to be used for a home occupation to now be used for a residential building. So the residential building only requires a 5-foot setback, and I believe the home occupation required a 25-foot setback.
So I just want to give the applicant a fair opportunity and the members a fair opportunity to know what the record is and what it isn't. Perhaps we should have a motion to lift from the table the hearing, the public hearing we had previously. And then I would urge all of you to ask questions if there's any feeling that among the members that something's being referred to that had been discussed last month, but you're not exactly certain what it is. Make sure you ask the witnesses to make sure we all know what's being referenced.
I make a motion that we untable last month's discussion about the impervious coverage area.
Can you state the application, please?
A-21-29.
And you need a second.
I'll second that motion.
And then we can call the question, unless there are any questions. So you can call for a vote.
Call for a vote, please.
Thank you. Mr. Crossan?
Yes, to untable.
Thank you. Mr. Saunders?
Yes, to untable.
Thank you. Mr. Jenkins?
I vote yes to untable.
Ms. Hudson?
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Cusick?
I vote yes.
Thank you. That's 5 in favor.
Good evening. My name is John Gary. I'm an attorney. My office is 48 The Green, Dover, Delaware, and I'm here representing Mr. Brian Brown on this application. So I believe everyone that's present and on the line was present here for my presentation last month. I just want to, so as I understand it, we're asking for the waiver or the variance for the impervious surface and for the a variance to within the 5 feet setback from the rear property line. So the only change, there's been some changes since our last presentation. The rectangular green portion, which was a greenhouse on the left-hand side of the property line to the rear, that right there, that one, that has been removed. That was a greenhouse, and Mr. Brown has removed that, and it is no longer present. He is also willing to remove, who's got the pointer? Who's handling the pointer? Oh, see that tiny rectangular square over here on the, no, down, over, right there. That can be removed, and Mr. Brown's willing to remove that. I don't have the dimensions, but it would return that, it would take away that portion of the impervious surface. And I believe with those two changes, it would probably equal or exceed the proposed 13-foot by 23-foot pole building that is the subject of this variance request, which would put us into, he would not be adding anything more to what's already there. I know that one of the concerns, I believe probably the primary concern of the planning staff members were the potential for additional runoff into the neighborhood. As I explained last month, there were two trees down here in the front of the property, which, right in, on those two, in this corner of the driveway and on the other driveway, which was there previously, and when that was there was an immense amount of flooding, not only for Mr. Brown's property, but also for the neighboring hood property. Whenever it was raining, there was a significant amount of flooding as to all the property in the neighborhood. The trees got blown down in one of the storms. Mr. Brown removed them, cut them up, and put in two dry wells on each side of the property, and then covered it with blacktop, and has solved the runoff problem, not only for his property, but also the neighboring property, and there's not been any difficulty since then. I submit that the, whatever impervious surface would be covered by the new property, or the new building, would not impose an additional significant amount of runoff that would endanger the neighboring property. And I don't believe that there's been any, I mean, we can find out later, but I don't believe there's been any opposition by the immediate property owners to Mr. Brown's property for this proposed structure in the back. With respect to the 5-foot property line, there's an existing building that was there at the time Mr. Brown purchased the property, which is within the 5-foot property line. I have no idea when that was built, but you can see that building is within, well within the 5-foot property line dimensions. I submit that the new building that is partially constructed does not significantly change the property contours, and it backs up, that property backs up to a commercial property, Top City, which is located on US Route 13. There's a parking lot in the back of the building, back of the commercial building, so it's not a residential area, and I don't believe that that proposed structure unduly harms the commercial property of Top City. And I would ask the board to vote for the variance as to each. Well, I also want to say something else about the 5-foot. That's a pole barn, and the poles are already sunk into the ground, and the expense and difficulty and burden to move that building 5 feet to comply with the 5-foot setback requirement is unduly burdensome, and to move it 3 feet, I think is unduly warranted. And I would ask that the board take that into consideration. And I think everyone remembers what I said last time. So,
Thank you. Any questions from the board members?
I have kind of a question, maybe more of a statement. You mentioned that it might cost, be a burden and extra cost to have the poles or the building changed because it's already been partially constructed. Photograph I'm looking at, I'm not a building inspector. I do know something about buildings. The poles that are here don't even go to the top of the building. They're not even supporting the top. I mean, this is really, he's going to have an expense regardless, because I believe that when the building inspectors come out, if it was granted, if your variance was granted, that they're going to make him totally redo this.
Well, I think he's going to need to go in for a permit for the building if he hasn't already. So that's a whole different subject. I think the matter at hand tonight is the setback variance and then
Gotcha.
the impervious coverage.
If you could repeat the question again.
Wasn't a question. I'm just saying if part of the your argument is that it's going to be a cost burden for Mr. Brown to have to replace this partially constructed building. I believe he's going to have to anyway. So that's.
No, what I'm trying to suggest is that to take the structure as it is and move it 3 feet, either by cutting the poles off and moving the building and resinking 4 other poles and attaching them to what is already there, is going to be an expense and burden, and also to tear the building down. So obviously, if the variance is granted and the permit is obtained, and no one's suggesting that the building can be built with, in opposite, or the building has to be built to code. So we're not here to say that the building cannot be built to code. And if he's got to tear the whole building down,
so one other quick
if he's got to tear the whole building down because it doesn't meet code, that's a different issue. But for purposes of my argument, I'm assuming that he doesn't have to tear the whole building down to meet code, that he can meet code with the poles already set within the 5 feet limit. If he can't, I would certainly submit that if he has to tear the whole building down and resink the poles, then he'd have to resink them with outside the 5 feet setback.
One other thing
if that makes any sense.
When you first came in, Mr. Brown first came in, I believe he was asking for the use for a commercial or home business, and he's now changed that. So you're not going to be doing any of the activities that you were before now.
He's indicated that he's not seeking a home business. So I guess he's not going to do what he thought he was going to do.
Gotcha.
Yes, in respect to that proposed building. So what actually will be the function of that proposed building?
Storage. Additional storage.
And then the second story as well, so that's all storage?
I believe so.
All right. I had a question. So what, you might have said this in the previous meeting, but what backs up to that rear property? Is it just fence? But I mean, I'm just talking like a barrier.
It's a chain link fence. The chain link fence is essentially on the property line there. And then Top City has, I'm not quite sure what they are, but things piled up next to the fence.
Thank you.
So I guess my point was, it's not a residential area, which would create an eyesore right on the residential property owner's line.
Any other questions? Good, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to speak on behalf of this application? If you would like to state your name and address and allow our attorney to swear you in, please.
My name is Mark Griffith. I live at 235 Rustic Lane.
Sir, do you affirm the testimony you give in this proceeding will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do. Okay, it is up against a industrial area, and all those things you see back there are trailer beds. So it's a Top City's industrial. See the size of it. So you can't see it from the highway. The building does hide it. The only reason he's asking for this is all the antiques he has for storage. I believe he's agreed to take down the 2 buildings to comply with the impervious surface. That was the main problem. As far as the building goes, the poles were set in the ground. They are set in 2 feet. I did not build it, but I am a builder. I am a neighbor there. I had no problem with it. I don't know if anybody else does, but I had no problem with it. You know, you can't see it from anywhere, and I don't see what's really hurting. So that's all.
Thank you. Any questions? I had one question. So what neighbor and property are you?
I'm 235 Rustic Lane. I'm 1 block that way.
Gotcha.
Yes, yes. So.
Yeah, that's what I was going to get to. Can you vouch for the drainage, that there was issues
Yes, there were.
beforehand, and then when he did come in and did some blacktop, that it helped versus not helping?
Yes, it did. There were a couple of trees that had fallen down just because of erosion, and the road was pretty slippery, as a matter of fact. When he did install the blacktop, it did solve that problem, gave it runoff away from his house. I know it had the perk test. I know it passed the perk in the beginning, but yes, it did settle, so that did help with drainage as well. He does have a basement, which does have a French drain, which floods, so it does help with that as well. And he did install 2 dry wells on either side, so it does capture water. It doesn't run in the street anymore. It doesn't run down and flood the street, which is, there's a wetland back there, so it does get a little wet. In the wintertime, it gets a little slippery too, so it does help with that.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Thank you.
Good, thank you.
Is there anyone else that would like to speak in favor of this application? If you're on the phone, please press star 1.
I see no hands raised at this time on WebEx.
Thank you, sir. Is there anyone that would like to speak in opposition of this application? Thank you. Please come forward and state your name and address for the record and allow our attorney to swear you in.
My name is George Dillon Kennedy. I live at... Oh, okay. Thank you.
So you don't have to stoop like that, right?
Thank you. My name is George Dillon Kennedy. I live at 210 Rustic Lane, Dover, Delaware.
Sir, do you affirm the testimony you'll give in this proceeding will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, sir. I do have a few questions and concerns with the proposed variance. I guess I'll start with the questions. The first question is the situation with the impervious land exceeding the 30%. Now, with the proposal of removing the greenhouse and also one proposed, I guess that one there, yes. Now, will that come into the 30-foot standard, or will it stay around 40%?
I think the testimony we had was that we don't know the dimensions of those two buildings, although I'm glad you brought that up. I think it would be useful for us in the event that a motion were to be proposed that was contingent upon removal of those buildings, that maybe we label them just so everybody remembers. If you could use your pen and assign an A and a B to them or something like that, and that would minimize the risk that we weren't all thinking about the same thing at the same time.
Okay, as long as everything comes into code of the 30%.
Well, hold on.
To answer your question.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, it will not bring those two. Removing those two buildings will not bring it down to 30%. It will be closer to the existing total impervious coverage, which is like 42%. So
Okay.
then he's coming in for an additional 1.18%. So removing those two buildings, he will be eliminating that proposed impervious coverage. So he's going to be in the 40% range.
So he still will be about a third over the 30%.
He's currently over 30% now. So with the removal of those two buildings, if I'm understanding this correctly, he would be even as he would now with the new building. So if he took two buildings away, he would be at the same percentage as the red building. Versus adding the red building, that would give him an additional 1.118%.
Okay, so as I understand it, taking away the two buildings there, we'll still keep them at around the 40% range, which is still about a third over the allowed 30%. Okay, thank you. I also have a question about.
Can you talk to us about why are you against that, and give me a reason why. Give us a reason why.
Yes, I am against the 30%. I'm also against the proposal of the building being 2 feet instead of the allowed 5 feet. Honestly, there's a reason why we have these codes, we have these regulations, we have these in place for these exact reasons. And I'm pretty sure it's for safety for those who own the property, as well as those that live in the community, in the neighborhood, such as myself. I've been living in this neighborhood at the same home, the same location for about 25 years. I am 29 now, so since I was 4 years old. And I grew up in this neighborhood. I've been up and down the street since I was a kid, walking, running, riding my bicycle, eventually growing up to driving a vehicle up and down this road. Me and my family have got to know a lot of the people that live in the area and the community. And again, it's a concerning thing to me to allow these things to happen without the proper procedures being taken and the guidelines taking place. And if we're allowed to allow that to happen, what's to say we're allowing a little more to happen and a little more. And I feel like there's methods and also alternative solutions to these proposals, and also what's been done to make it fit in within regulation. I understand that he put in the blacktop to fix the runoff. I would like to say that there's no truthful fact that there has been a runoff problem, as well as a solution. And this hasn't been claimed by any neighbors or anything like that. And like I said, just growing up in the neighborhood, I have not seen any issue with there being flooding or anything like that. And if there was, there's natural ways to fix that, alternative ways to fix that, without increasing the impervious land, the impervious percentage by so much. Now, if things were to change on the property to where more buildings got taken down or anything like that to reach the 30%, then I would be fine with that. As long as everything's within the rules, the regulations, and everything. That's why we have these things. And like I said, my concern is safety, and also the direct and indirect issues that this may cause in the present as well as the future. And as far as there's also one more thing I would like to look at. If we can just take a few slides over, please. Right there. Looking at the property and the runoff, Is the runoff coming down into the street? Or is it going out? Like, where is this runoff going to? Where is this water going?
So from my understanding, correct me if I'm wrong, this has been this way for a while. He's seeking a variance because he built a shed and pole shed in the backyard. So he's seeking a variance to have the shed legalized, but then he's saying he's willing to take down the 2 sheds that he currently has on the property to make it even to what he currently has had that's been there prior. So there wouldn't be more water, correct?
Well, what I'm saying is, did the addition of the extra variance solve the problem? I mean, there's statement saying there is, but is there like claim or proof to that it solved the problem?
Could I ask you to clarify something? I thought early on you made a statement that there was not a flooding problem there. Did I misunderstand you?
As far as it coming out to like the public road and everything, there wasn't a flooding issue.
There was not a flooding issue, is your...
No, sir.
Okay.
Yeah, so like Morgan said, the blacktop that you see there was existing. It's been there for a little bit of time. And the applicant had to come to this board because of the shed he built, which brought this impervious coverage to fruition. So that's why he's here now today to present that and hopefully to legalize what's there and existing. So if you feel there's an impact that you see.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. Okay. Just, can we look at the image again? That one there. Now, is this runoff going out into the street? Like, out into the street and across the street?
So the shed is in the back of the property, so that runoff would be in his backyard.
Okay, so the runoff is not related to the blacktop? I'm just trying to get clarity here.
We can't tell you exactly where the runoff is going. We're just telling you all the buildings and the pavement are creating an impervious coverage that is more than what is permitted.
Okay, so as it stands right now with the building not being officially built, is it exceeding the 30% impervious?
Yes.
Okay. All right. And I did have a few questions for the proposed building as well. If we can look at the slide with the diagram of the houses, like with everything like drawn out with footage wise and everything.
The plan.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
That there. Off to the right of the property seems to be plenty of space, and that building can sit well over in that part of the property, and it'll come into code with the 5 feet. My question is, why can't the building be put there? Also, it just draws a few red flags to me that this building has started to be erected without a permit, and that it's also, again, too close to the line as well. If it came up a few feet, or even if it moved out into the more open area, where it wouldn't be an issue or be a problem, I still don't know if it'll exceed the impervious percentage. But I feel like that would be a simple solution to the problem there, as we have all that space, all that room. And I was at the last meeting, and there was also talk and concern about it being a 2-story building as well. Then again, this building is being erected without a permit, and hasn't been looked at, it hasn't been approved, and so it's just like, well, I already started. Like, can I just finish it? Type of deal. Like, I don't think the right procedures and the right guidelines have been followed for this proposed building. And I don't believe it makes for a fair example of what is and what isn't allowed and what we can and cannot do in our community. And so I just feel that the right thing should have been, the right steps, the right moves should have been gone about. And it's also my question of concern of the safety of this building, not for, again, the owner of the property, but as well as the community. How it's set up, how it looks. You can say you can drive by it and not see it. Again, I've lived in that neighborhood for 25 years. I drive up and down the street. I can see it. It is a little concerning to me, the safety of it. And to be honest with you, it's an eyesore. And so I feel if the right steps went into place, as in, again, surveying the land, getting a licensed person out there to look at it, getting an official person to have it permitted to go there would have been acceptable. Allowing this to be built already, though the poles are put in place and everything, it's just saying, hey, well, I've already got this in place. Can't I just continue with it? And are we gonna let it slide? As in, again, we have these rules and guidelines in for a reason. What's stopping me from doing the same thing on my property, coming to you again and saying, hey, I've already started this, why can't I finish?
All right, thank you. Any other questions? Good, thank you.
All right, thank you.
Is there anyone else that would like to speak in opposition of this application? If you are on the phone, please press star 3.
There's no one in WebEx wishing to speak at this time.
Thank you. At this time, we will close application A-2129. We're closing the public hearing for this application.
Yeah, at this time, we'll take a 5-minute break and go to the business meeting. All right, go ahead, let's get started in the business meeting. Want to do roll call?
Yes, sir. Ms. Hudson?
Here.
Mr. Carlson?
Here.
Mr. Saunders?
Here.
Mr. Jenkins?
Here.
Mr. Cusick?
Here.
Thank you. That shows 5 present.
Thank you. And then we need approval of the business meetings from September 16th, 2021.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of the September 16th, 2021 meeting.
Second.
Thank you. We got a motion and a second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 And Jamie Saunders, I was not here for the last meeting.
Okay, thank you. So that's 4 yeas and 1 abstaining.
Next item is a notice of decisions for application A21-31, application A21-32, A21-33, and A21-35. Need a motion to approve those notices of decision.
Sorry, there's also application A-21-31.
What's that?
So there should be application A-21-31, A-21-32, A-21-33, and A-21-35.
Yep.
I'll make a motion to approve the notices of decisions of the September 16th, 2021 meeting.
Second.
Thank you. Got a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
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 And Jamie Saunders abstaining again.
Thank you. And we have some old business. A20-14, Raymond and Lisa May Miller.
Yes.
Application A20-14, it should be at the back of your package that you received.
Yes. So Mr. Miller came before you June 18th, 2020, and his application was voted to be approved. He was asking for, or he was granted a variance to allow farm machinery equipment repair structure to be constructed on a 9.5-acre parcel with a setback of 146 feet from any property line and 244 feet from any dwelling located on an adjoining property. Mr. Miller has since had an engineer go out there and do a survey showing where the proposed building was going. So when we gave these numbers, it was to staff's best ability to be able to get these setbacks. Mr. Minnick, the engineer on the application, has submitted new measurements that are from the deed. So now Mr. Miller is asking for a change to allow for the building to be 120 feet to the nearest property line and 216 feet to the closest dwelling located on an adjoining property.
Do we have a testimony for that?
Is there anyone on the line that would like to speak on behalf of this application? Please press *3.
There's no one online wishing to speak at this time.
No, sir.
Thank you. Any discussion, questions, make a motion?
Was this advertised, or did it need to be advertised as a change?
We didn't have to advertise it because it's a modification to the already approved. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak on this application? Please come forward and state your name and address for the record and allow our attorney to swear you in.
I'm Raymond Miller, 1337 Tower Road, Camden, Delaware, 19934.
Mr. Miller, do you affirm the testimony you'll give in this proceeding is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes. As you can see on the previous, when we did the variance the first time, we went with the map that was here. Obviously, as you can see, that was not the same as when they actually did the survey drawing. So that changed the measurements. So I don't really know, did I have any comments or questions other than I don't think it will necessarily affect anybody. 26 feet is not that great of a distance, but yet it's 26 feet. With the tree buffer that's there, and that is going to stay there, I don't think that it should affect anybody in any negative way.
So it's heavily wooded area right here. Sorry, between that there's residential lots, and then where the pole building is going to go.
Yes, there is a wood line in between the adjacent property, residential properties, and this property to where the proposed building is going.
Was there opposition to the application during the original request? And just an answer from Mr. Miller would be sufficient for me.
On the first meeting, yes, there was an opposition letter, I believe. I think that was before I changed I don't remember, was that the time when I had the building turned, running towards the road, and then I changed it afterwards. I don't think there was an opposition after I changed it running parallel with the road, I don't believe.
He is correct there.
Thank you. Any other questions, discussions? Looking at the site plan, it looks, for the purpose of the building, I mean, looks like you do need that to maneuver, be able to maneuver around the building, and obviously all the surroundings, the wooded lot and the existing septic field. I mean, it looks like it's placed where it needs to be.
I'd like to make a motion, Eric Crossan. I make a motion to approve A 20-14 to allow setbacks from the original 146 and 244 feet respectively to 120 feet and 216 feet based on the engineer's remeasurements from the building to the property lines, and the fact nothing else really changes from before, just the footage of the setbacks.
And I, Jamie Saunders, would like to second.
Motion and second. Please call roll.
Thank you. Mr. Jenkins?
I vote yes in approval of application A20-14 based upon the new evidence presented to us on the adjustments on the setbacks.
Thank you. Ms. Hudson?
For A-20-14, I vote to approve the setbacks based off the public testimony and the nature of the zone where the property line does not change. The characteristic and the use of the immediate facility does not change. And that's it.
Thank you. Mr. Saunders?
I vote to approve A-20-14 based on staff recommendations.
Thank you. Mr. Crossan?
I vote yes to approve based on my motion.
Thank you. And Mr. Cusick?
I vote yes to approve application A20-14 based on staff recommendation, and then the minimal impact on the surrounding community with the existing wood line in place there. It looks like the right place to put this building.
Thank you. That's 5 in favor of the motion.
Looks like everyone is here, so we'll just go down
Sure. So first we have application A-21-37 for Joseph and Elizabeth Bergman. They were asking for the setbacks from Pearson's Corner. They were asking for a 50-foot setback.
Any discussion, motion?
So, Mr. Chairman, you can ask for a motion and describe the motion you'd like if you choose to. I know oftentimes you're in the role of making the motion, and because you're chairing the meeting, you don't feel comfortable doing that. Obviously, you don't have to make a motion that you don't want to make, but if you're inclined to support a motion, I think you could indicate what that might be.
So I could recommend a motion, but another board member will have to restate it. Gotcha, thank you.
I'd like to make a motion for A-21-37. I vote for modified approval to have the building constructed at 75-foot setback and 100-foot west of Pearson Corner Road based off the staff recommendation and the public testimony that we heard tonight.
Crossen, I second the motion.
Thank you. Mr. Jenkins?
I vote yes in support of application A-21-37 based upon the recommendation of the staff in terms of having a 75-foot south and a 100-foot west.
Thanks for that clarification. I want to remind the group that the motion is for a modified approval from the application. So I'd like as you just indicated, thank you, sir, your justification for the motion to make clear what it is you're voting for. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Saunders?
I make a motion on A-21-37 for.
Hold on, Mr. Saunders. We already made a motion, so we're just voting on the motion now.
Well, okay. I'm sorry. I vote for the modified approval of A-21-37 based on staff recommendations for the 75 south and 100 west, Pearson's Corner.
So that's a vote yes on the motion, Mr. Sanders, correct?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes, correct.
Thank you. Mr. Carlson?
I vote yes for the modified approval of the variance for the building to be constructed 75-foot south, 100-foot west of Pearson's Corner Road, based on the staff's recommendations. The fact that there were a couple of letters of oppositions basically stating safety concerns for the curve in which the property sits on and where the building might obstruct.
Thank you. Ms. Hudson?
I vote to approve A-21-37 based off my motion.
So that's a vote yes on the motion, which is a modified approval, correct? Just for the record. Yep, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Cusick?
I vote yes to the modified approval of to construct the building 75 feet south, 100 feet west of the Pearson's Corner Road, based on staff recommendation as well as the testimony given tonight.
Thank you. That's 5 in favor of the modified approval.
Thank you. Application A-21-38.
Thank you. Application A-21-38 for Jonathan and Lucy Miller. They are requesting a variance from a 25% expansion of a legal non-conforming use for a sawmill.
Any discussion, motion?
Crossan, I'd like to make a motion on, to approve a 2138 based on the staff recommendation, also the fact that it is a 3,170 square foot building currently on the property. It's going to be demolished and replaced by the new building. The new building will allow for better working conditions for the employees, allow for updated equipment, and also help attract workers to the area that are hard to come by today.
I'll second that motion.
Thank you. Ms. Hudson?
For A-21-38, I vote to approve based off staff recommendation and public testimony that we heard tonight. I feel that the nature of the zone where the property lies does not change. There's currently a building on the property, and I believe that this update would aid Mr. and Mrs. Miller in their business.
Thank you. Mr. Saunders?
I vote yes to approve A-21-38 based upon testimony and also for the staff recommendations.
Thank you. Mr. Jenkins?
I vote yes in support of application A-21-38 based upon the testimony of Mr. Miller.
Thank you. Mr. Crossan?
I vote yes to approve a 2138 based on my motion.
Thank you. And Mr. Cusick?
I vote yes to approve application A21-38 per the staff recommendation, as well as the existing building that's there now. It's been in operation since the 70s. This expansion it has a minimal impact on the surrounding area, as well as it allows them to be more efficient and be competitive in the industry.
Thank you. That's 5 in favor of the approval of the motion. Sorry, so the motion carries. Application A21-38 is approved. Next, we have application A-21-39 for Jonathan Barber and Shanna Addicks. They are asking for a variance from the provision prohibiting accessory structures to dominate an area of the principal structure to enable the construction of a pole building.
Thank you. Any discussion, motions for this application?
Crossan, I make a motion to approve the application A2139. Although it is quite a bit of square footage difference from the home, I think that based on where the nature of where the property lies, it's almost 90%, 95% agricultural, and I don't believe that constructing this building will in any way affect any neighbors, because most of the neighbors have buildings similar or even larger. I believe that there could be a practical difficulty in that the owners had a garage there that they lost, and by constructing this new building, they'll be able to get everything in there that they need to, and it won't affect anybody in the area.
Hudson here. I second his motion.
Thank you. Mr. Jenkins?
I vote no for application A21-39 based upon the excessiveness of the request in terms of the original structure and the new proposed building being so much larger than their primary structure.
Thank you. Mr. Saunders?
Yeah, I vote no to A-21-39. The same thing. I believe it's extremely excessive with the awning and the front porch.
Thank you. Ms. Hudson?
For A-21-39, I vote to approve. I believe this property is extremely unique, there being all around the current property is farm, and I believe that this pole shed goes hand in hand with the other agriculture buildings that are in the surrounding area, and I believe that the nature of the zone doesn't change with this outbuilding, and the character and the use stays the same.
Thank you. Mr. Crossan?
I vote yes on A-2139 based on my motion and the fact I don't think this is setting any kind of precedent in the area there again, because almost every property surrounding that is there is agricultural and has buildings of this nature.
Thank you. Mr. Cusick?
I vote yes to approve application A-21-39. Based on the hardship that they have, the existing garage there, that comes with that. And then, as Mr. Crossan and Morgan stated, the surrounding area is agricultural, has similar buildings in size in that area, with approval from the neighboring property per this testimony. So I vote yes. So we have 3 yes, 3 yeas, 2 nays. I believe we need 4, correct, Mr. Townsend?
I'm referring to the bylaws right now.
We have to have a common vote of 4. We do have to have a common vote of 4.
So what are the options as we?
The motion to approve has failed. So you can declare the motion failed. I don't know if you want to hear any additional motions in response or as a result of the denial of the application, but that would be the only thing you could do at this point.
Or is it an option to table it that allow more members present?
Is there a motion to table?
I was wondering if that's an option. Yeah, I mean they're pretty much, so at this point the application will be denied, right? And would have to either resubmit.
I make a motion that we table A-21-39 till next month when more members are present.
Thanks, Ms. Hudson. But I think nice try. But I think where we are is that the motion has been, or the application has been acted upon at this point, and a motion to table is not in order. So, as I understand it, the applicant is permitted to come back with a new application that is at least somewhat differs to the satisfaction of planning staff from the initial request. Does that sound fine?
Yes, sir.
Can't come back with the same application immediately, but a varied application could be heard.
Mr. Townsend, if someone were to make a modified motion, would that be in order tonight if there's a desire among board members?
That was my first suggestion, was that given that motion passed, if someone wanted to offer an alternative motion, it would not be necessarily out of order. I don't think tabling at this point, though, would be permitted.
Would anyone like to make a modified?
crossing. I'll make a modified motion to A 2139 to approve the 40 by 64 foot pole building and a 12 by 12 foot lean shed without the 12 by 40 foot lean that was requested.
Is that the area marked in green?
The green would be the 40 by 12 lean-to.
I think we just need to figure out what the square footage is and then stick with that.
The total square footage of the 40 by 64 pole building plus the 12 by 12 lean-to would be 2,704 square feet total.
Can you say that number again?
Yes, sir. The proposed 40 by 64 pole building plus the 12 by 12 lean-to would be 2,704 square feet total.
And the difference is 1640.
The difference between the house and Mr. Crossan's proposed motion would be 1,040 square feet.
If I make one comment, please. If you look at the way the lean-tos are, it seems that the pink partially goes over the green that's about to be eliminated. So by removing that, I don't know if the lean-to could be shifted back or would have to be modified. As you can see, it will kind of stick out there without the green that's not being approved.
Would it really make a difference as to where the position of that 12 by 12? Well, if it best. Gotcha.
What was that? Sorry. What was that?
So they would be permitted to put the 12 by 12 lean-to in any location on that building. It wouldn't have to be where the proposed
Right. So
is now.
we'll set a square footage and they could do whatever they want to. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Modified approval. Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to make one more time a modified approval for A 2139 to a reduction of the total square footage of the building and a 12 by 12 foot lean-to to 2,704 square feet.
Hudson, I second that.
Thank you. Mr. Jenkins?
I'm still thinking.
Mr. Saunders?
I vote to approve a modified for A-21-39 of the 40 by 64 and the 12 by 12 of 2704 square feet.
Thank you. Can you please give a reason?
Yes, I believe it's the uniqueness of the property, where it's at, the farmland, all the other farms, and this is not as excessive as the original one.
Thank you. Mr. Jenkins?
I vote yes in support of the modified motion for application A-21-39 based upon the fact that there's been a reasonable effort to keep this number more in line with the code and possibly won't set a precedence in this particular area.
Thank you. Ms. Hudson?
For A-21-39, I vote to approve the modified motion of a pole shed of 40 by 64 with a lean-to of a 12 by 12, not to exceed 2,704 square feet. I believe this property is unique with the surrounding farmland, the nature of the zone where the property line doesn't change with the pole shed, and the character and the use stays the same.
Thank you. Mr. Carlson?
Yes, I vote to approve A21, the modified, make a motion to, based on my motion, A2139. I do believe that by removing the 20 by 40 foot lean, it does help reduce, obviously, the overall square footage and make it better for that property.
Thank you. Mr. Cusick?
I vote yes for the modified approval for application A21-39 to allow then the applicant to construct a 40-foot by 64-foot pole building and a 12 by 12 lean-to, which will put the total square footage of the building at the accessory building at 2704. The size difference between the proposed pole building and the principal structure will now be 1,040 square feet. The reason for the modified approval is, as stated earlier, it fits within this pole building fits within the surrounding area with the agriculture nature that surrounds it.
Thank you. So that's 5 in favor of the modified approval. The motion carries. Next, we have application A-21-29 for Mr. Brian Brown. He is seeking a variance from the impervious coverage permitted of 30% and from the required setback of 5 feet for a residential accessory building to be at 2 feet from the rear property line.
Thank you. Any discussions or a motion?
I make a motion for A-21-29 as a modified approval that we approve his current impervious surface area of 42.47, but deny the variance for a residential accessory structure to be closer than 5 feet from the property line.
I second it.
Got a motion and a second. Call the roll, please.
Thank you. Mr. Carlson?
I'll vote yes to the modified approval for A-21-29 to approve the existing impervious numbers and to deny the residential accessory structure based partially on the staff recommendations and the fact that there are other alternatives to where that building could be placed and be compliant.
Thank you. Mr. Jenkins?
I vote yes in support of the modified motion on the impervious coverage and no on the setback based upon the evidence that was presented tonight. And there's just so much going on in reference to this entire parcel.
Thank you. Mr. Saunders?
I vote yes to a modified approval on A-21-29 to legalize the existing impervious surface on the property, but to deny the 2-foot setback. I don't believe that they've proven that it's a difficulty, exceptional practical difficulty. I believe it was self-imposed. They built a building that was not the code.
Thank you. Ms. Hudson?
For A-21-29, I vote to approve the impervious area of the 42.47% of the modified approval, but to deny the variance from the residential accessory structure to be closer than 5 foot. I believe it's not an exceptional practical difficulty to have that building 2 feet from the property line where he has the open space to the right. It seems more self-imposed, but I do believe the applicant was willing to work with the board and the neighborhood by trying to improve the flooding or the potential of the runoff. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Cusick?
I vote yes to the modified approval of the 42.47% impervious, the existing impervious surface to remain, and then as well as the denial of the 2-foot rear setback. As the other member stated, I think it is self-imposed. There's other areas on this property for sure that this building could go and affects the neighboring property.
Thank you. That's 5 in favor of the modified motion of approval. The motion carries.
Good. What do I got to do now? That's it, right?
Motion to adjourn, please.
Motion to adjourn.
I'll make it. A motion to adjourn.
Second.
Thank you.
All in favor, say aye.